Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for how to empower your end users with DaaS and Amazon WorkSpaces. Before we get started with the presentation, I'd like to introduce you to today's speakers and let you know that we'll be recording today's webinar, so it will be made available to you after today's session. If at any time you're having trouble hearing us, please let us know using the chat feature on your WebEx dashboard. We have two speakers joining us today. Nick Frank is the head practice lead of mobility and end user computing. In his role, Nick helps clients evaluate the virtual desktop and application marketplace for ever-increasing mobile user population. Eric Terrell is a head public cloud practice manager, and in his role, Eric focuses on simplifying cloud adoption. Together today, Nick and Eric will be discussing Amazon WorkSpaces and its relevance to enterprise IT. Following the webinar, both Nick and Eric are available for a Q&A session. If you have questions throughout, please submit them via chat, and I'll be monitoring and submitting these questions to the speakers during their Q&A. Now let's get started. Nick, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. So briefly, we're going to walk through the agenda we have set up today. Hopefully, this is bringing a lot of value around Amazon and WorkSpaces and how to help empower your users. And to do that, the agenda is briefly going to go through our AHEAD cloud delivery platform, which is our framework we've built based on customer experience and how enterprise IT is best fit to transform and help empower their business to be more competitive. Then we're going to get into the definition of the DaaS marketplace and what that solution offers as compared to traditional VDI or end-user computing services. We're going to then take a deep dive approach into the WorkSpaces architecture hosted on Amazon Web Services and an overview of the solution, and then some frequently asked questions that we get from customers on what WorkSpaces offers, how to best adopt it, and what is the underlying technologies. Then the second half of the session is going to be dedicated to a demo of the admin console and what the end user's experience is like as part of adoption or part of using a WorkSpaces platform. We'll hopefully have time for some questions and answers at the end, but please, if during this presentation questions do come up, as Chelsea mentioned, please put them in the chat window and we'll get to them during that session. So as I mentioned, AHEAD has built out what we are calling our cloud delivery platform, and this methodology and this framework is meant to help organizations adopt new technology and become a broker of services in the marketplace. And really what this operating model enables IT to do specifically is, first, foundationally, we want to simplify how we're doing things with the processes we have, how are we best fit to optimize and become more agile within our business. We also want to accelerate service delivery. So as services are consumed by our end users, our customers, we want to make sure that that service request is processed within an appropriate amount of time compared to some traditional manual processes. And we also want to accomplish transparency and provide value and information back to the business around how long things are taking, are we meeting SLAs, are we improving upon SLAs. And what AHEAD has built here is, as part of this cloud delivery platform, is a way to understand and adopt these solutions to help gain those efficiencies that I just described. So from another level of detail, foundationally what we're trying to provide is a foundation for developing applications and services and leveraging the latest tool sets and techniques to help accomplish that. At the very top of the cloud delivery platform, enterprise service management is the act of, or the quantification of, trying time services back to individual business processes. So if today I'm provisioning infrastructure, if I'm spinning up different applications, if that's manual today, we want to help quantify and help streamline the deployment of those services. And what that does is also helps maintain support of those services. So as we quantify and classify our service management solution, it gains a lot, it provides IT a lot of efficiencies and operational benefits in how they go about their day-to-day interaction with their users and business. The next level of detail is all around cloud management and automation. And cloud management, what we're talking about there is your on-prem cloud, your on-premises infrastructure, whether that's dedicated infrastructure or even a public cloud service, getting into a true hybrid cloud type model. How am I going to manage resources and simplify the operational process around adoption and simplifying workflow? We talk with customers a lot about automation and orchestration of specific repeatable tasks. So this is all, this practice area is specific to identifying where we're having challenges with meeting SLAs and delivering value to the business, and helping orchestrate and automate those tasks to drive business value and outcomes for our customers. The third pillar and third tier of our cloud delivery platform is around mobility, and the Amazon WorkSpaces solution falls within this mobility practice area. It's the blend of virtual desktops and applications and leveraging public cloud benefits to provide desktop services to our customers. We also discuss as part of our mobility suite our mobile management infrastructure and how we're helping customers and our users adopt mobile-specific solutions, whether that's mobile device management or mobile application management. But presentation of apps and business processes to our users is what our mobility practice is built around. And then at the foundation, data center infrastructure, and the first balloon there we have is public cloud. So how to help adopt public cloud services and solutions in addition to where we are today. So today I'm a 3-tier storage network and compute architecture. How can I help supplement what I'm doing today with a public cloud offering? How does data protection fit into that solution area? And then essentially, how are we going to help drive business value and optimization throughout this entire stack? So at Ahead, we've built this cloud delivery platform to help simplify, have IT become more agile, and then provide business and transparency back to our end users and our other business units. So getting into the content here, the first slide we have is really just around what is DaaS and the definition of that. So what I've put here is desktop as a service is a virtual desktop that is hosted by a cloud provider and provisioned on demand to users on a wide range of devices. So if you think about the DaaS marketplace, essentially you are subscribing and consuming a desktop operating system from a cloud-hosted provider. So much different than the traditional EUC marketplace where I'm buying a physical laptop or desktop and imaging that on-prem. This is essentially leveraging a public cloud provider and driving benefits from that type of architecture. And then going to another level of detail, so Amazon WorkSpaces in this DaaS marketplace. WorkSpaces is a DaaS offering from Amazon Web Services that allows consumers or customers to provision and manage desktops easily while maintaining a high-quality user experience. So from a desktop operating system standpoint, when we provision a physical desktop, Amazon WorkSpaces changes that dynamic just by allowing users and administrators to consume resources from a public cloud provider, but while maintaining a user experience that is exactly the same as what they're used to. So the idea behind DaaS and what Amazon WorkSpaces is doing in the marketplace is really trying to provide value across the board when we're talking about desktop operating system and how users consume those types of workloads. I want to hand it over to Eric initially to talk about a WorkSpaces overview, and then we're going to get into the architecture.
Thanks, Nick. So, as Nick mentioned, WorkSpaces is a hosted service provided by Amazon. Some of the benefits of the service that a lot of our customers see and value are the pay-as-you-go model, which we'll talk about use cases a little bit, but it's great for seasonal business or short-run workspace provisioning. Right now, this is a monthly model, so you're paying based on your bundle size and image per month. We expect that to go to an hourly model within the foreseeable future. The nice thing about it is it allows you to scale up or scale down pretty quickly. Provisioning time can be up to 30 minutes to get the initial workspace station up, but login is pretty streamlined. You can actually ping what your latency times are by regions in Amazon. And another great feature of it is providing this persistent desktop experience across devices. So Nick will show you what devices are capable, and from a Mac environment to to a mobile environment. Another great aspect of this is it's all provided with Amazon security. So you're going over a secure connection using this workspace. That's all handled by the underlying Amazon fabric and the configuration that you or a vendor like Ahead would do. This can provide not only security, but capabilities for compliance and other features. So There's a lot to this solution. We won't get to all of it today, especially in the detail level, and we'll definitely be open to talking more about it, but that's a nice transition for us.
And foundationally, I thought the most value we could bring to the audience today is really comparing what a DaaS solution like Amazon WorkSpaces brings to a large enterprise IT environment versus what traditional end-user computing, whether that's a physical laptop or desktop or a virtual environment spinning up, virtual VDI infrastructure on-prem or applications hosted and virtualized internally. So the one key benefit, and we're going to go through many of them, but scalability and pay-as-you-go is essentially much more different than what we are used to in the large enterprise environment. So when I move to a DaaS model, I can scale per user, both up and down, meaning as a user, as Eric mentioned, is seasonal, or if I have temporary workforce that I don't necessarily or can't buy and deliver desktop architecture to, whether it be a laptop or desktop computer, DaaS is something that allows users to bring their own device, and we're going to talk about the devices that are supported, but enables them very quickly to get up and running. And from a DaaS service model, the consumption behind that and the financial benefit is really just you pay for what you use, which is much different than what a traditional UC solution provides. I have to do, a lot of upfront planning, right-sizing my environment, a lot of guess and check around what users are going to be using the system when. When I provide a desktop as a service platform, I'm paying for what I use, and it's as simple as that. So as we mentioned, the benefits to eliminating hardware procurement in the data center. A lot of our large enterprise customers, it takes months to order, ship, build, and connect and test on-prem infrastructure, where a DaaS solution eliminates all of that for you. We're also simplifying the desktop environment management construct. So from a hypervisor standpoint, if I'm leveraging a VDI platform, or from a SCCM architecture, those are all components that I use in a traditional EUC environment. But from a lifecycle standpoint and from a management of the environment, I'm simplifying a lot of those components because Amazon handles a lot of that infrastructure for us. And as Eric mentioned, desktop's provisioned in minutes. So as I go through the demo, we're going to basically see, a user being provisioned up to 30 minutes at the high end from a image and bundle standpoint. Users can be up and running as soon as they're available in the environment, and they can download and install the client for them, but up and running in a matter of minutes from a workload standpoint. And the environment, so leveraging Amazon holistically here, so foundationally, WorkSpaces built on Amazon Web Services. If you're an existing Amazon customer, obviously you're already familiar with setting up your environment, but from a net new customer, we're talking less than weeks, we're talking days to stand up a new Amazon environment. So from a benefits and overview, DaaS offers a new consumption model and much different paradigm when talking about how desktops and applications and services are provided to our end users. To counteract that, what we see in the traditional UC space is more flexibility. So a lot of different options on how I customize, how I enable users with their applications, management of the environment. I have a lot more control in what I can own and what I can operate. Now, the overhead of that is time and management and skill set, but desktops are also close to the applications. So if my applications are running in our data center and I'm providing a virtual desktop environment that sits in my on-premises infrastructure, the latency and the legacy applications that require a high frequency from a round-trip time, those would benefit for traditional EUC. And with traditional EUC, I also have a lot more control and insight into what's happening on the back end. Now, we can discuss the benefits and drawbacks of that too. Is do I care, or do I just want to maintain that I'm going to have suitable, performance? Amazon maintains a lot of the infrastructure insight and control that, the value prop of Amazon and public cloud providers are getting away from. In traditional EUC in the marketplace, I'd be remiss to not mention that a lot of customers today have an investment in on-prem virtual apps and desktops, and moving away from that holistically is not something that we would recommend. But already having an existing investment and skill set to manage these types of environments is something that we'd want to, evaluate and make sure that we understand when moving away from that.
Yeah. And one more point on there, on the traditional side, desktops close to the apps, this also works in the cloud. So we see a lot of this with customers where WorkSpaces is actually part of their cloud adoption strategy. So they're moving the workload out into the cloud, so moving the desktop out to the cloud makes sense in that case.
So calling out some drawbacks. So as I mentioned, desktop as a service solutions like WorkSpaces may not be appropriate for all users. So if I still have traditional 3-tier or client server-based applications that don't function in a disparate environment, it's very challenging to move your application in some instances to Amazon. But at the application level, if I am having success moving applications to Amazon, then WorkSpaces becomes a very, very useful solution in that stance. However, a lot of our legacy applications are probably going to have to stick around for, forever almost, it seems like. But the other drawback of DaaS today is limited application lifecycle capabilities. And when we get into the demo, we're going to talk about what Amazon provides from their marketplace regarding applications and what construct they have for packaging and managing enterprise Windows applications on their platform. But today, that is a limited application feature set, and we'll get into the details on why that is. But the drawbacks of traditional, if we're comparing, the large capital investment is usually involved when I'm talking about whether provisioning desktops or building out infrastructure to build out a VDI environment or hosting a large-scale virtual application environment. And that also requires a significant amount of in-house expertise to maintain, support, manage, upgrade. Those are all things that we want to consider when, traditional EUC environments have caused us pain in the past. And then those usually require, if it's a new environment on the virtual side, significant upfront design effort. So, bringing in expertise or, studying and researching different platforms and innovations in the marketplace, those are all challenges that we see with traditional EUC, and difficult to make highly available. And what I wanted to convey there is essentially, if I have a DR or a business continuity strategy that I need to implement when I'm sort of building out a net new VDI environment, that's usually like-for-like infrastructure in multiple data centers, and then load balancing, global server load balancing, replication, a lot of different features and technologies go into making a highly available architecture. Now, that can be accomplished, but comparing that to what DaaS offers is, uptime and SLAs from Amazon and WorkSpaces are much more robust and much easier. It's something that you don't necessarily have to think about. You're putting the onus on Amazon to provide that environment and that solution. So hopefully that gives you an understanding of the benefits and drawbacks when we compare DaaS solutions to traditional EUC. And hopefully, from a physical computing standpoint or a virtual computing standpoint, these are some of the things to think about when, what are the right users and who are the right people to help adopt or can adopt the solution. And so getting into some of the use cases, as Eric mentioned, we've listed out 5 here, and there's obviously more of these, but these are where we see the easy, quick wins. And traditionally in the, virtual end user computing space, we used to talk about DaaS as a, 5% of your user population might be able to use it, which obviously didn't instill a lot of confidence in our customers. Today, we see that number probably closer to 20–25% of our user population. Now, that varies by business and industry and who our users are, obviously, but I have a lot more confidence today recommending to customers that this solution is appropriate for a lot of different workloads and a lot of different user population in our environment. So Eric, do you want to walk through some of these use cases in detail and talk through some of the benefits?
Yeah. So, we see them here, bring your own device. Again, sometimes when we're onboarding users, we may be in a model ahead of actually uses this model where we can bring our own device. This is a great enabler for workforce wherever they're at, quickly onboarding them. We can control their environment. We can control their experience and give them access to the same things we would give them access to today. But if they want to work on an iPad or a Mac or any number of devices, they can. We see a lot of value in temporary workers and mergers and acquisition. A lot of these have overlap. The temporary workers and dev and test also have overlap. But we actually have a customer, one of our oldest customers on WorkSpaces, that their primary use case is mergers and acquisitions. And as they bring a new company into the fold, how do they bring them on board and, are they shipping them devices? Are they having to go through a large onboarding exercise? And they see a lot of value with that. We see this from a dev test. This is also great for geographically dispersed development teams. So putting that workspace closer to the end user or finding a good medium territory that has low latency is also a good use case where we could deploy developer station, give them the tools that they need, allows us not to have as many local staff having to support the system. And we also see this in call centers as well. People that have a streamlined utility function that they have and enabling those call centers with the basic needs they have are important. That's also, you see a lot of this, it's quickly onboarding people, it's new people to the organization, it's short-term staff, it's, company growth. These things have not just an onboarding thing, but they also have a use case that requires us to quickly buy something, quickly turn up an environment. And if, and we've seen this from customers who come to us and say, hey, we just did this merger and we have 1,000 employees that we want to onboard in, 2 months or 3 months, just the physical procurement and design of that necessary environment is a non-starter. But if we go to a DaaS solution, then that's actually something that we can entertain. So now let's talk a little bit about the architecture. Again, this is still going to be high level. We can always talk about this in more depth, and Nick will touch on this as he goes through the demo. But very quickly, hyper-focused on Amazon WorkSpaces, the end users that you see at the top, they're having to download and install a client on their machine. We also see zero client capability out there for some niche use cases. But that connects over a secure network through the cloud. So Amazon has their core constructs, their isolation of their SDN through their virtual private cloud. The WorkSpaces environment is an overlay of that. And when I log in, I go through the session orchestration. Again, that's over HTTPS. I have my workspace service and my stream management all kind of wrapped into that, and so that's what's delivering up that Windows user experience. From a configuration perspective on the Amazon side, at a minimum, that requires an AD connector. We recommend this independent of WorkSpaces to all of our customers. If you're using Active Directory, which I'd say 95% of our customers are, connect through that and manage through that. And then the customer responsibility here is really managing that Active Directory and possibly Radius for multi-factor authentication, which is also a best practice that we recommend. In your data center, if you're hosting applications or have access to other corporate assets, web apps, files, etc., that all can be managed through the user experience and connected over a secure architecture. Move on next slide. So our approach for WorkSpaces is similar to our approach for Amazon and cloud in general. We focus on everything through automation as much as possible. And so we want to provide a secure environment that we can manage billing and compliance through automation of account management, identity and access management, network configuration, infrastructure configuration, incident management, log management, and change management. So what we help our customers to do is kind of create this library of operational capabilities, whether it's an application stack or it's a workspace or it's a given resource policy or a network stack or security stack. That all kind of goes into this overall library. And from a workflow and automation perspective, I could use the example here that you see of, I have an internal user, they have their core network that they're connecting over. They have an internal identity and access management role or group, maybe a back office image, and what we would term as an internal workspace. That's their user experience that can be automated and provisioned. We actually do this through ServiceNow on the ITSM side, which most companies use for some type of ITSM tool for onboarding. All that can be automated through that process. Same thing for remote workers. So if I have an offshore developer, I would have a remote VPC configuration. Again, this is network isolation on their SDN. I might have a different identity and access management profile for remote workers, maybe the developer's workstation image. and out of that I did a remote workspace for my developers. All of that can be tied in to an overall monitoring framework, and we've actually built capabilities around this to actually give more insight into lifecycle management and billing for our customers. This is a custom component that we've added to the workspaces environment. Right now there's some limitations with the tagging methodology in Amazon for workspaces, which will likely be rolled out in a future future release of the platform. But we were able to quickly tie together this fabric, and this is a big value add for our customers. Again, we've had multiple customers on this, and one of their initial complaints on workspaces was, hey, we like this, we need more insight into what's going on, who's doing what and where, and this is some of that operational fabric that we have underlying that. So that's our core approach from an automation and orchestration perspective on how to manage workspaces and how to manage kind of all things cloud.
So the next section we wanted to dig into is how enterprises help onboard and utilize this service. So as Eric mentioned, the head has done a lot of work and due diligence around the services and the integration and the automation. But what are the other enterprise IT services that bring value and help make these usable in the enterprise? The first piece, we mentioned Active Directory. So by deploying the AD connector from the Workspaces service allows us to leverage GPOs and OU structure that help us kind of define and frame up who our users are and where our workspaces are from a management standpoint. So these workspaces sit on your domain, they're a part of your domain, and they are managed the same way you would manage physical workstations today. So anything you're doing today can be leveraged in Amazon to help manage and maintain your workspaces environment. Now there are certain things around login scripts and GPO-based functionality that may not lend themselves to a cloud-hosted solution. So, carefully consider how you would adopt these workspaces. But the benefit of having them on your Active Directory, you can imagine around management and insight into who's using what and in what departments. And then obviously group policy and group policy preferences can be used in this environment as well. The other area Eric mentioned was intranet connectivity. So these also sit on your network. You can have a separate IP subnet range for these machines, and you can even do multiple subnets in Amazon's environment. But essentially, you're providing internal network connectivity through multiple AWS services to get these machines, again, access to internal web apps, access to internal data very securely and very quickly. You can also leverage SCCM. So by deploying a distribution point and an agent to our workspaces, we can maintain the application lifecycle strategy that you have today. Now, this can be in context or in addition to application layering solutions or the workspace manager application that Amazon provides. But SCCM is still a widely used and standard technology for OS and application lifecycle. And then multi-factor authentication, so providing a secondary strong authentication methodology for how these users would get onto the service. We also want to put together some frequently asked questions that we hear from customers and of the industry in general around DaaS. So for workspaces, what is the display protocol? So Amazon WorkSpaces leverages PC over IP from Teradici. So if you're familiar with VMware's Horizon or other desktop protocol solutions, PC over IP is a widely adopted and an industry leader in how they would manage and present that experience to users. The second question, what do users need to do to access their workspace? We're going to walk through this in the demo as our first step, but there is a website, clients.amazonworkspaces.com, that users can go out to. They'll see there the device mix of supported devices and be able to select the device they're on and download the client. Once the client is installed, then they log in with their Active Directory credentials and are up and running with their workspace. So very straightforward, very seamless. If you have an internal mechanism for pushing out agents, obviously those clients can be downloaded and managed through that process as well. But again, externally facing SaaS solution to download the client and get up and running quickly. Are users allowed to install applications? So as Eric mentioned earlier, yes, workspaces are persistent. So meaning user data can sit locally on these workspaces, and also users are allowed to install applications, so giving them a persistent desktop. Now, obviously, there are things that we can do to prevent that if that isn't your use case, but Amazon WorkSpaces inherently is a persistent desktop that allows users to customize and the flexibility to adopt whatever application set that they want. Security. So how secure is my Amazon Workspace? So I've listed some certifications here, and what I tell customers is, foundationally, Amazon as a public cloud provider is focused on providing the most secure experience. All of the underlying infrastructure, whether it be EC2 or S3 or Lambda or any of the other services that are being used as part of this solution, they're essentially running on those foundational offerings and are getting the benefit of the security and the resiliency of those solutions. We also are allowed to encrypt both the C drive and the user data drive, and this is an optional component as part of the workspace lifecycle. So as I go through and provision, and we'll see this during the demo, is, disk encryption is optional, but just a click of a button, I now have disk encryption, which is much different than what I would need to do on a physical workstation. And then peripheral devices. So by leveraging a client-based deployment, I also get the benefits of USB devices and USB pass-through. So we always get printing and headsets and audio, those types of requirements from users, especially in the call center space. So can I use a headset? Can I, can I use Skype for Business, Link? Those are the types of solutions that are enabled by allowing a client to be installed. So USB devices are absolutely supported. It's just getting down to what is the device, what is the driver, and actually making it work. So if there are any other questions, these are some of the very common ones in the FAQs that we see, but please put them in the chat window and we're going to try and get to those at the end. So I think we're doing pretty good on time, but what we wanted to do for the rest of the time before questions was get into an actual demo of this. And if I flip over, I'm going to start at the clients.amazonworkspaces.com site. When users log into or just connect to this website, they're presented with what device that they're on. So if I'm on a Mac today, I download that client and install it. Very simply, very easily, users are usually pretty familiar with what device they're on. That was not always the case, so you'd have to kind of pick and choose what agent to push out. It'll also detect what device they're on and present them that client that's highlighted here. The other benefit of this site, and you can go back after this webinar and do this yourself by going out to the site. At the bottom, we have a check status connect, or a connection status check hyperlink. And if I click on that, what I'm seeing here is from service availability at the very top, what AWS regions WorkSpaces is available in, and then which one is the most appropriate for this user. So me running this at my, at my desk in the office, I can see that the US East region in North Virginia is where, from a round-trip latency standpoint, I see I'm 27 milliseconds away, and then they perform a speed rating, but from a PCO over IP standpoint, I'm well within performance and supported use cases for how I would use an Amazon Workspace. Now, if I was sitting in Singapore or Sydney, you can see, my latency would be much different. But again, from across different regions and from where I am at the time, I can absolutely see if my performance and from where the users might be located. You can do this yourself.
Yeah, and we've actually seen customers connect from South America to Ireland in less than 120 milliseconds. So that's acceptable. Maybe not ideal for some use cases, but we're seeing this in play, and customers are pretty happy with it.
So overview of that, the clients and the network status. What we want to spend the rest of the time on is in Amazon Workspaces and in the admin console, we're going to walk through and talk about, what an administrator would see. And then we can get into what the user would see. And I actually have a workspace that I'll bring up and we can log in and take a look at what that looks like. I'm going to start here on the left. So at the very top, there are two sections within the Workspaces admin console. The first is dedicated to the traditional workspace, and the second is around Application Manager. Workspaces is who my users are and what image and bundle that they're assigned to, and Workspaces essentially is that brokering solution that you would see with traditional virtual desktop environment. Who my user is, what's the machine catalog or the delivery group that I'm part of. Is it a Windows 7 machine? Is it a Windows 10 machine? that's what I'm going to go through, and essentially when I launch WorkSpaces, if I see what directory I have access to, if I go back here for a second. Yeah, of course. So here, from this client WorkSpaces section, you can actually bring up the console again. Oh, that's why. Too much sitting around talking, not enough doing. So this is actually pretty useful. So if you haven't been in the Amazon Web Services console before, you can see all of the services that they offer here. In the Enterprise Application section, that's where desktops in the cloud lives for the WorkSpaces service. And getting right back into the WorkSpaces console here, again, if I launch WorkSpaces, I set up my directory. So we have a simple directory that's hosted in Amazon today. But if you were leveraging this in an enterprise environment, the directory would be your Active Directory. And if I click Next, what I can do from the console is essentially add new users to my directory, or essentially search for users. So if they already have a account provisioned, or if I'm leveraging something like ServiceNow to provision an account, again, everything here that you're seeing is driven by an API, so nothing has to be done manually, and obviously leveraging an API is something that we would recommend. However, walking through here and just manually selecting a new user, I'm going to use my Nick Frank account. The next step here is we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the other components within WorkSpaces, and those two components are images and bundles. And the first thing we're going to select is the bundle that we want to enable this user on. And from a value standpoint, this is the smallest configuration. It's a 1 vCPU and 2 gig with 10 gig of dedicated user storage. You can see the pricing from Amazon down here in the bubble. But what you see here is a Windows 7 experience. And in the background, the environment is hosted on a Windows 2008 R2 server, and they're actually doing shared hosted desktops, similar to a Citrix XenApp environment, with 1 gig and 1 CPU and 2 gig of memory dedicated to this user. And with this value bundle, you also see that Firefox and 7-zip are installed just with that base image. And then down here, essentially I just go back and pick which is appropriate for my user. And if I select that value bundle and go to the next step, I can then declare if I want encryption on the C drive or D drive. And again, these are just optional. And walking through this, you can see now a summary of what I'm going to provision. I have this summary screen of I'm going to provision to this user the value bundle, and I'm going to encrypt, and I'm going to provision that to this user. I'm also, because this is a demo, already provisioned the user, so we don't have to wait for that process to configure. But from a workflow standpoint, when I go back and just say, here's the user for which application set and which resource requirements they have, you can see how easy it is to get a user up and running by the bundle and the image that is created. And then once that actual workspace is provisioned, I would see status available over here on the right. And another, again, summary of what the IP address is and what my registration code is for my workspace. From an image and bundle standpoint, what WorkSpaces allows you to do is create a custom image. So today, with a Windows 2008 R2 box or a dedicated Windows 7 image from Amazon, I also have the ability, or a third option, to create a custom image. So what I would do is deploy my standard SCCM task sequence or build out my customized enterprise corporate image. And what I would do is essentially go through a process of creating a custom image and managing that within Amazon's console. So the next user that I would want to onboard can leverage my corporate desktop image that has my, my antivirus agent is something that I want to have in there, SCCM, specific version of Office, different web browsers that I want to add or remove. So figuring out what applications and who the users are from a desktop image standpoint is something that Amazon provides as well. Getting into Application Manager a bit, what Application Manager is a framework and a service that Amazon provides that's supplementary to WorkSpaces that allows you to manage your own applications or applications that they've already virtualized and have available in their AWS Marketplace. So from a marketplace standpoint, what they've done is gone through and installed applications that can be either purchased or are available for free from their web services environment. And I get to determine which users get assigned to these specific applications. And like I mentioned, the same construct applies for our own application. So if I have an application that has a Windows installer or something that doesn't necessarily have an installer, like a widget or something that would sit on the desktop, I can package those applications and essentially say, this user at this time on this workspace gets assigned to these specific applications, and they can go through and install them themselves, or I can automate the installation of those applications. So a supplemental solution to something like an SCCM or an application layering technology, a lot of different options and flexibility are presented when I'm leveraging what we would call their WAM solution, or Workspace Application Manager. I'm not going to dig into this too much, but the AWS Marketplace has a lot of different free utilities and some paid utilities around. There's some CAD applications. There's some, web browsers. Firefox is obviously part of that. Some just IT utilities are going to be part of that AWS Workspace to get you up and running quickly. You can get Visio and PowerPoint and some other solutions out there as well. One of the last key components I wanted to talk through, and one of the benefits of when we move to a public cloud or a DaaS solution, what I'm enabled with is a lot more insight and control into what is being managed and what my usage is for these users. From an application standpoint, I can see from an application side, who has installed this free CAD software, what version it is, and was it from the marketplace or not. And I can even sort by users and get a, is this from a corporate user, or is this somebody that's hosted in Amazon directory? But essentially, I can see from this user nFrank what applications that they have assigned to them, if they've installed it, and if they've activated it, meaning have they used it. So you can see I have 5 different applications assigned to me. I've only installed 4 of them, and I've only actively used 2 of them. So different paradigm and a different way to sort of quick access to who is using what and what do we have installed on these workspaces. So we went through this pretty quick. Obviously, Workspaces is meant to be very simple, and from an administration standpoint, it doesn't take a ton of time to provision new users. Again, the time that we spend on Workspaces versus the time that we would spend on, actually working on application virtualization or packaging, those are the types of activities that Workspaces are essentially, unburdening from our IT department. They're providing a construct to deploy and manage desktops, and then also deploy and manage applications. So again, getting back to who the appropriate users are, what user population can use this solution, a lot of different use cases and a lot of different users can definitely start using this. Again, it's probably not appropriate for every single user in your environment unless you are a holistically cloud service type solution, or an environment that leverages a bunch of different SaaS applications. If you are cloud first, this is absolutely something that we would, strongly consider as part of a EUC strategy. So the last component, I actually wanted to bring up the client and from a user standpoint, what I would see when I log in. So the client has been installed, and essentially what I'm doing is bringing up a Amazon workspace, and this workspace has, again, the look and feel of a Windows 7 desktop, because that's exactly what it is. So at the end of the day, users can customize and interact with this desktop just the way that they do with a physical workstation. They have access to install applications. They have access to leverage the Workspace Application Manager client that's installed already for me. So if I bring this up, I can go back and see, from a discovery standpoint, those 5 specific applications that I had provisioned to this user account. I can then launch them and interact with them. If I dig into VLC, for instance, here and open that up, I can essentially just from this console, from what Amazon provides me, get up and running very quickly with some core set of applications. We've also installed the Citrix receiver in here for enterprise customers that already have a XenApp or XenDesktop environment. Publishing applications to a workspace, obviously very easy, because at the end of the day, this is a Windows 7 desktop. I can install the receiver client and host virtual applications as part of my enterprise strategy. So from a design and from an architecture standpoint, I can get very customized as to what this workspace needs to look and feel like. If they are internal corporate applications, if they are intranet websites, external resources, again, what are the right users and what are their application set that we need to enable for these guys. And if there is more information around, well, what is the user experience, what are they allowed to do, what's under the covers, that's what we would like to follow up with everyone on. This was just meant to show from a very quick, get it up and running standpoint and what the user experience is. This is what a user would see like as an adopter of a Amazon Workspace. So if I go back and I leave full screen, we have a couple more slides, and then we're going to get to the questions. So if I flip back here.
I think we just wanted to talk about solutions really quickly. So, we have a team that's really focused on cloud management and automation here, lots of technical subject matter experts, principal consultants, architects, engineers, et cetera. We've talked a lot about, our views on cloud is, it's great, it's fast, it's elastic, it's ready when I need it. The best benefit, the best use of that is through automation. So a big focus from our team is on automation. We obviously have the AHEAD Innovation Framework focused on strategy, design, and deployment of these services that we engage with customers on. So we help, rationalize what should the workspaces or desktop as a service solution be. Let me, if you flip to the next one. We also do consolidated billing for Amazon. Again, this is not, don't confuse this with account ownership. What this is very focused on optimization for our customers and giving them insight into what's going on in Amazon, which they may not have a lot of depth and understanding of. We have a quarterly newsletter. We do monthly reporting here, highly customized. We use services to give a lot of insight into what your utilization of services is. If you look in that lower right-hand corner, that's actually a solution we designed to get around one of the tagging limitations. So basically, we're using the Amazon Lambda serverless function to be able to pull workspaces and write that into Dynamo and S3. And what that allows us to do is give more granular reporting back to our customers. We actually have customers using that. It was something that we developed with full expectation that as Workspaces matures, Amazon will release this functionality more tightly coupled with the service. These are some of the value adds we provide as part of our consolidated billing for Amazon Web Services. So if you want to talk about that, we can also follow up with that.
First, I'd like to say thank you so much to both of our speakers, both Nick and Eric, for their great presentation. It was awesome. And then next, we'd like to take a few minutes out just to answer some of the questions that were submitted throughout the presentation. And if you didn't get a chance to do so, please feel free to do that now using your chat feature on the WebEx dashboard. Okay, let's see. First question we got is, how long does it take to provision a workspace, making it available?
Yeah, so we kind of touched on that. So if you're an existing Amazon customer and already have a VPC and a direct connect or a dedicated VPN connection, again, talking through and working through the Workspaces provisioning process is what I did there at the beginning. If I already have a user account and I already have a bundle and image that I'm going to leverage, the provisioning process in the background is about 10, 15 minutes. That's, at the end of the day, similar or, it's actually much better than what we're used to from an SCCM deployment standpoint. And again, once this Amazon Workspace has been provisioned, the user will either get an email or can be prompted to go out to that clients.amazonworkspaces.com site, install the client, and be up and running, again, within less than an hour. So from the entire process, from start to finish, to users being up and running, again, this is a less than an hour type engagement.
Okay, next, notice the CPU and memory specs, and they seem pretty skimpy for an actual PC. How well do they perform as a DaaS?
So the value bundle, which is the one that I kind of focused in on, was the 1 vCPU and 2 gig of memory bundle. The performance bundle is actually a 2 vCPU and a 7.5 gig of memory. Today, we've seen the high-end enterprise class engineering workstations not be necessarily a good fit because of the CPU and memory restrictions. I've seen virtual desktops that are engineering focused, 4 CPU, 16 gig of memory. If you're doing, high-end CAD workflows, those are some of the applications that would probably not lend themselves well to a workspace. But from an enterprise workload standpoint and what users are used to if you're running a virtual desktop environment today, a 2 CPU, 4 gig of memory is usually probably pretty standard. Still, if we're looking to, be as cost effective as possible, for the right users that can get by with a 1 CPU, 2 gig of memory, Windows 7 desktop, those are the types of questions that we would help talk through. Where are our users? Who are they? What is their application set? But yeah, the smallest configuration of 1 CPU, 2 gig of memory, and the biggest is the 2 CPU, 7.5 gig of memory configuration.
How does Amazon WorkSpaces differ from traditional AWS products like EC2 and S3?
I'll take that one. It's pretty similar to most of the traditional Amazon services. What Amazon has done very well over the last couple of years is tie their different components together. So ultimately, WorkSpaces is running on top of EC2 and S3 and the other Amazon services that are available out there, backed by the Elastic Block Store for volume management, et cetera. There are some limitations. We mentioned the tagging capability that we have to work around for. But other than that, in terms of metrics, visibility, billing, utilization, management through the console, management through APIs, it's very consistent with other Amazon services.
How is SCCM distribution point deployed? Is it via another DaaS instance or via an EC2 instance? If via EC2 instance, how is connectivity between EC2 and DaaS achieved?
So when I create a VPC in Amazon, I have the ability to obviously spin up workspaces in that VPC and that virtual private cloud. I also have the availability and the option to spin up EC2 instances. So SCCM would be deployed, or can be deployed, I should say, in my VPC as a distribution point. I can cache my, my packages in SCCM at that point, and then schedule deployments of those packages out to my workspaces. Depending on where your core infrastructure is, I wouldn't necessarily say that's a requirement. You can leverage an internal distribution point and go across the network to deploy these packages. So if you are a SCCM customer and that is your direction around application management, then you have two options. One is to deploy a distribution point in your VPC, or stay on-prem and essentially distribute packages over the network.
Well, let me add one piece to that, just so those people that aren't maybe familiar with Amazon software-defined networking. That VPC construct is your isolated network within Amazon. So if you own cider blocks, you can manage them and provision the same subnet, the same network constructs in Amazon, whether that's directly through a VPN, through gateways, et cetera. All of that can be configured and managed the same way you do it today. So if you own the IP address, you can administer that and add those types of subnets within Amazon. You can also use elastic IPs, et cetera, from Amazon if necessary. All of that can be administered and controlled similarly to how you do it on-prem, just very, very different tools.
Yeah, and the one thing I do want to add there, so managing applications, again, is a traditional EUC and a DaaS, challenge. How are my lifecycle processes going to translate or resonate with a DaaS solution? One of the things that I've seen, be successful is leveraging some third-party tools to take advantage of some layering solutions that are out there. So VMware, Liquidware Labs, there are some enterprise-class application layering solutions that can be built in your VPC to help supplement your application lifecycle strategy. So yeah, while SCCM is absolutely supported, there's a bunch of different options that we can help talk through and which one might be appropriate for, actually just lifecycle application management as part of your desktop as a service strategy.
Have you seen many customers adopting workspaces instead of other mainstream DaaS products?
So yes, we are. We're seeing upticks in not only the number of customers who are adopting, the size of their deployments from hundreds up to thousands, up to tens of thousands. So there are some very large customers out there using workspaces. We're seeing that. We're also seeing demand increase substantially as customers become aware of the service. Again, it's not as many people are aware of the service as they are of traditional Amazon Web Services, infrastructure, storage, compute, et cetera. But we are definitely seeing it mainstream in mergers and acquisitions, seasonal environments, as part of cloud migration, getting out of the data center. I would like to add one piece there to say that going back to some of the CAD/CAM computer-aided engineering use cases, we're actually seeing a shift to cloud in those cases where they're actually streaming the application through a web portal. So it's more of a web utility or app streaming functionality. Again, that's putting the workload and the data out in the cloud together, just like we talked about early on, with an advantage of keeping your apps and data close to the user or close to the workload. Similar thing for the cloud, what we're seeing there on the CAD/CAM computer-aided engineering side.
Yeah, and we are seeing a shift to developer workloads as well. So leveraging GitHub as a content repository and a development tool. Those are some of the solutions that we're seeing adopted in the enterprise that are traditionally, our users might have challenges working from a global user population standpoint. So if I'm leveraging SaaS applications and, most of my user population is leveraging web in some form or fashion, DaaS is definitely a solution. We are seeing WorkSpaces be the leader in that space.
Yeah, we have customers that have high seasonality where 75% plus of their staff needs come within, say, a 3-month window. And so we're definitely seeing adoption in that space. We're also seeing education, a lot of interest from educational, secondary education, post-secondary education.
Okay, great. Unfortunately, we did receive a few more questions. We just don't have any more time left to answer them. So if you did receive a question that we didn't get to, I will be submitting it to Nick and Eric, and they can get back to you via email. So look out for that. And then lastly, if you're interested in learning more about Amazon Workspaces, Nick and Eric will both be showcasing this topic at Looking Ahead in Chicago in June. Looking Ahead is the annual technology summit created and hosted by Ahead to provide you with the knowledge, resources, and relationships needed to drive innovation in your enterprise. This is a day-long event. It's really cool. We've got lots of cool sponsors and speakers. So please register now at www.thinkahead.com/lookingahead-2016. Other than that, thank you everyone so much for attending. Thank you, Nick and Eric, for speaking. It was great, and we hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.